Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today we're going to talk about Dungeons & Dragons 5th Edition. We're going to talk about Lorraine Williams, we're going to talk about Dave Chappy, and we're going to talk about Dragon Dice. Alright, so Dave Chappy, he's got a channel, and he just did a history of Dungeons & Dragons Part 1, Part 2, and Part 3. And most of what I'm talking about is within History of Dungeons & Dragons Part 2. Dave Chappy's History of Dungeons & Dragons. It is my opinion that what Dave Chappy did is an outrageous piece of revisionist history that is a absolute hit job on Lorraine Williams, who now, looking at Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition, sitting on a mountain of success, right? Having conquered fully Warhammer, having conquered fully Magic the Gathering, right? Like, Magic the Gathering literally just took Forgotten Realms, Faerun, into their world as a setting, right? Magic the Gathering was an absolute competitor to Dungeons & Dragons, right? Today, the two, that competitor lives in peace and is in a symbiotic synergy with Dungeons & Dragons, right? Lorraine Williams oversaw the defeat of World of Darkness and every other tabletop game on the market, right? And so to look now at the success and where Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition is today, and say that Lorraine Williams, that he actually put in there, it was commonly understood that smart people at TSR were making the game to succeed despite her, is outrageously revisionist and is incredibly false and damaging to the history of Dungeons & Dragons. And here's why, right? There are people on Twitter who want to tell you that the history of Dungeons & Dragons is filled with regressionism, okay? Regressive thought and regressions against identity and regressions against gender and all these different things. Without a doubt, there were missteps all throughout Dungeons & Dragons. Those missteps are as recent as Candlekeep, right? Like Candlekeep Mysteries, right? There absolutely have been regressive actions in Dungeons & Dragons. But to say that the success of Dungeons & Dragons does not belong to Lorraine Williams, right? Who was the CEO of TSR from 1986 to 1997 and took over the game when Gary Gygax had run it into the ground with his hubris and his horrible, horrible business acumen, right? Is outrageous. And what it does is it is revising and rewriting the actual progressive history of Dungeons & Dragons. Dungeons & Dragons, without a doubt, truly has progressivism in its history. Lorraine Williams is proof of it, right? When lots and lots of other games were struggling, right, to not have male leads as design leads, to not have equal representation, Dungeons & Dragons alone, I'll tell you right now, show me any other company that's had a female CEO for 11 years, right? Any other tabletop role-playing game company. What company is progressive is that? Is there another one in the entire industry? And so to come along and steal the actual real progressive history of Dungeons & Dragons and take out one of its greatest points of progressive and rewrite it as though Lorraine Williams was, a lesser business person than Peter Atkinson or Gary Gygax, which is exactly what Dave Chappy does, is outrageously wrong, outrageously unfair, and frankly, I think it borders on sexism. I really do, right? Please correct me if I'm wrong on that one, but I can't. To see Dave Chappy just absolutely fenestrate, like just eviscerate Lorraine Williams' part in the success of Dungeons & Dragons, and then praise Peter Atkinson, who house flipped D&D, bought it for a few million, sold it 2 years later like a house flip, right? And he had nothing but good things to say about Peter Atkinson and nothing but bad things to say. Not a single kind word given to Lorraine Williams for 11 years of saving and stabilizing and gaining massive momentum for Dungeons & Dragons. Now, you tell me why. Is it anything but gender? Look at it for yourself. If I'm seeing something that's not there, let me know. But boy, oh boy, it sure looks like a lot of people, he's just upset that there was a female who actually really saved, stabilized, and carried Dungeons and Dragons forward. That's my opinion, right? If there's evidence against what I'm saying there, please tell me. I'm more than willing to listen. I'm willing to hear it if it's correct. I want to know the facts, and I want to adhere to the facts. And when I look at it and I see him say nothing but good things about Peter Atkinson, who house flipped Dungeons and Dragons, and then just absolute eviscerate the history of Lorraine Williams, it's galling. It's galling. So one of the things he brings forward is he says, "Oh, what a terrible business person. She spun up Dragon Dice, right? And Dragon Dice was supposed to, give Dungeons and Dragons lots of money to help stave off the competitors of Magic the Gathering and Warhammer, which were real competitors at the time, right? So he's 100% right, right? So Lorraine Williams is in COC, right? And she's like, okay, let's go all in on Dragon Dice, right? And so she creates these collectible dice, which then are going to be used for a game. It does horrible. It is not well received in the 1994, 95 era, right? And so what ends up happening is just like millions of these things are returned, right? And so Dave Chappy's like claps his hand and go, "Oh, look at this horrible business mistake. She was just so foolish, and it's just terrible for her to do this," right? And I'm like, you outrageous, repugnant fool, right? When you run a company, you do it with risk. You don't make the safe choice every time. Dungeons and Dragons had real competitors coming up, right? And they needed to do something, and she did. They created lots of very cool settings. By the way, the #1 setting of the entire universe grew specifically during Lorraine Williams. The default setting for Dungeons & Dragons today, Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition design team denies it, but it's written in every source book, is Favoring Forgotten Realms. That was spun up and created under Lorraine Williams. She created that. Forgotten Realms is a success today and is the strongest Dungeons & Dragons setting, and that came directly from Lorraine Williams, right? She also tried Spellfire, right? And Dragon Dice did fail, 100%, right? But here's the issue, right? To Monday morning quarterback that right now and say, "Oh, how foolish," right, is absurd, right? He wasn't there. I was. I saw Magic the Gathering come out in 1993. I saw FLGS's spin up with $300-400 and raking in 50 to 100 grand in a single year. I saw dozens of them, right? Magic the Gathering and collectability was a force to be reckoned with. And Lorraine Williams didn't sit on her haunches, right? She made a move. The move didn't work, right? In business, that's how it works, right? Don't be proud of businesses that don't fail. Be proud of businesses that make failures and then manage them. And guess what? Lorraine Williams expertly managed Dragon Dice, right? It was a complete failure. So you know what she did? She sold TSR lock, stock, and barrel to their greatest competitor, right? And that was Wizards of the Coast. That was not a mistake. It was not a mistake. If you look where we are right now, Wizards of the Coast and Hasbro have been amazing guardians for the game, right? And Lorraine Williams could have been prideful and said, "No, I'll never sell to my competitor," right? But she knew that they had made a critical mistake. And so she managed and she dealt with the mistake. And you know what that's called? That's called pure, unadulterated, awesome leadership. And how dare Dave Chappy, just eviscerate her history for that. It is revisionist and unfair and incredibly wrong. I really, really am calling out Dave Chappy on this. I honestly think he should completely reshoot those videos. To leave that up as though it's the real history of Dungeons & Dragons is outrageously false and unfair and incredibly regressive. It is regressive. It is hiding the true progressive history of Dungeons & Dragons. It is hiding one of the greatest progressive acts Dungeons & Dragons ever did, which was a CEO who was a woman for 11 years. And because Lorraine Williams doesn't have the attributes and parameters that Dave Chappy doesn't like, he wants to erase her as a woman and erase her as a champion of the game and a guardian of the game. And I'm not going to sit by idly and say, I say he's wrong, and I think he should reshoot every single one of those videos and say it the true way. That's my opinion. I'm willing to hear your opinion. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Please consider liking, subscribing, and have a wonderful millennium.